And after our first All India Open Mock 1, which was Mock 12 for you, of course, now we are moving over to Mock 13 VARC section. I hope that you did your best in this particular section. Let us go ahead and discuss this paper together. So here is our first passage, which is based on sort of what ecology, climate change and all those things. So it introduces something very interesting to us. It talks about the polar shift and particularly connects it with something called irrigation. I don't know about you, but personally, I never thought of it. I never thought that, oh, our pole shifts, wobbles, and even something like irrigation will go on to affect it. But then that's the fabulous thing about reading. You get to know of all of those different things. So right off the bat, irrigation. Then there is a computer simulation that tells you how much the drift must have been. Thereafter, you have North Pole wandering across few meters in diameter. Seasonal weather causes part of this cyclic drift, and long-term variations in the temperature and salinity, often dubbed as Chandler wobble. And then it goes ahead and tells us that Chandler wobble is not the only thing. There are these other things involved, and then the next paragraph starts focusing on the effect of irrigation. And thereafter it generally goes ahead and continues it. It also talks about some of those additional effects of that irrigation. Okay, so that's basically your passage, right? So let us see. Question number 1. Which one of the following statement best describes what the passage is about? So if I were to think, some of the key things that I'll write are that it is about polar drift, and then it focuses a lot on surprisingly large effect of irrigation on polar drift. Additionally, it also talks about some more effects of irrigation. So that's the core. So let's start with option A. The passage describes the way in which the runoff from irrigation has caused the poles to shift. See, this is a word that we obviously have a problem with. It is a distortion. It's an addition. The passage does not say that irrigation has caused it. Polar shifts have already been, or they've already been occurring. Irrigation has added to it. So that's the problem with A. B, the writer analyzes the impact of the polar shift on climate and temperature. Hey, come on, that is not even been talked about. We have talked about climate, temperature, but that was the effect of irrigation. So there is this last paragraph that is devoted to it. So B is way far away. And then C, the passage highlights the significant contribution irrigation has made to the shifting of the North Pole. Yes, this covers the first 2 points, misses out on the third. Okay, D, the writer wishes to emphasize the deleterious impact that irrigation has on the environment. That's very narrow. That is only the last paragraph, just a few lines, and therefore even this can be eliminated. So if I look at it, A, B, C, D, including C, we had some part which is left out in C, but C turns out to be the best answer choice because A mentions something external, B mentions something external, D is very narrow, and thus C becomes our best answer choice for question number 1. Let's head over to our next question. Question number 2. Which one of the following scenarios is unlikely to follow from the arguments in the passage? So first up, what do you understand by unlikely? Unlikely is that very low probability of being true. So basically, the closer you are, the closer an answer choice is to being false, the better that answer choice is for us. Okay, so let's start. A. While irrigation may cause polar shifts, it does not have an impact on climate. This was in fact given in the last paragraph itself, but let me take you to the relevant part for option A. Look at this. This was given in the last paragraph. Irrigation cools temperatures and boosts humidity, as well as increasing rainfall in the Four Corners area of the American Southwest and enhancing flow volumes in the Colorado River. So if we look at this, we know that irrigation has affected temperature and climate. So to say that irrigation does not have an impact on climate, but that is very clearly false. Okay, B, the polar shift due to irrigation will endure forever. Once again, let me take you to the relevant part. So in the passage, we are given this line, unlike other drivers that vary over the course of a year, Wilson says the polar shift due to irrigation is permanent. So because the polar shift is permanent, I mean, another way of saying permanent is that it will endure forever. So that's true. Runoffs from irrigation can cause sea levels to rise. That's once again true. I can take you to the relevant part. Remember that 6 millimeter increase that has been talked about in the passage? Right here. See this? So yes, even this is true. And then have a look at D. Alterations in the temperature and saltiness of seawater can cause polar shifts. Do they? Yes. Look at once again the highlighted part from the passage. Researchers have long known that the North Pole wanders across the Arctic sandscape. Seasonal weather patterns, temperature, salinity of ocean water, all of these things are given here, and therefore D is also going to be true. So there is only one option which is false. I mean, we don't even have to figure out what is closer to false. A is straight away false, and therefore our answer to question number 2 should be option A. All because it turned out to be false. So A it is for question number 2. Let's dive into question number 3. The runoffs from irrigation has resulted in all of the following except, so 3 of these are true according to the passage, one is not. The one which is not true is of course going to be marked as our answer. So let's check. A, it has shifted the North Pole further than it would have had there been no irrigation. It has shifted the North Pole further than it would have had there been no irrigation. Let's look at the relevant part. So the impact of irrigation was mostly to nudge the pole generally east. Without irrigation, the pole would have drifted nearly the same amount, but towards the center of Greenland instead. So on the basis of this, we can say that this is true. Without this, we would not have needed it. Sorry, I think let me just take you to the right part once again. And then when it comes to B, the same thing. It has nudged it towards the east, right? So B is also true on the basis of this. Then have a look at C. It has shifted the North Pole much further than the shift that took place during the Ice Age. Now the passage actually contradicts it. Here is the line mentioned in the second paragraph. So you notice irrigation has been labeled as the second largest contributor after that Ice Age thing. So Ice Age definitely shifted it further. Had that not been the case, we would have called irrigation the number 1 effect, right? And therefore C is very clearly false. Then it has made the polar shift eastwards for all time. Can we conclude this? Yes, from 2 things. First up, look at A. Look at what we have written for option A. It is irrigation is shifting it towards east. Combine it with this fact that the drift due to irrigation is permanent. We referred to it a little while ago. If you combine it, we'd be able to label even D as true. So considering that A, B and D are true and C is false, we'd of course go ahead and choose C as our answer for question number 3. So C it is. And now let's move over to question number 4. Which one of the following statements correctly expresses the similarity between the Chandler wobble and the runoffs from irrigation with regards to their effects on the planet? Fantastic. So let's see. Both result in an alteration in the Earth's rotational axis. Yes, both of them do that. Both make the shifts in the North Pole fluctuate back and forth. Not really. You notice Chandler wobble. It's a wobble. So a wobble will be back and forth. But when it comes to irrigation, it is consistently pushing it towards east. So we cannot say that it is back and forth in the case of irrigation. And therefore B is Not true. C, both are major contributors to the shifting of the two poles. Superficially it may appear all right, but then the problem is the passage talks about only the north pole. So we have not enough data to conclude about the two poles, and therefore it can be eliminated. D, both are non-cyclical in nature and scope. Hell no. Chandler wobble is cyclical. Irrigation on the other hand is not cyclical. So even D is false, and that is why our answer to question number 4 should be option A. So that takes care of our first RC passage for this particular mock.